Hey everybody, it's Dr. Quinn here, and I want to do a little intro and discussion about Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. You are going to be writing a 2 to 3 page short critical analysis of this text, and I want to give you some perspective and some ideas on how to approach it. And the first thing you definitely want to do is you want to find the text. Remember, the text is right in the Module 2 overview where all the links for all the readings in the module are. You get a chance to download the book. It says 222 pages. There are a bunch of blank pages. And remember, this is an 8.5 by 11 shot of a text that's actually much smaller and shorter. This will take you a few days to read it, but there will be an expectation that, remember, in a 7.5 week class, the two main assignments this week, you've got one shorter quiz on the Gita, and then you've got this assignment. And so this is where you're spending the majority of your time. You could be easily reading 50 pages a day, and you can knock this out in 3 or 4 days because, again, there's lots of blank spaces. So it's not actually even 222 pages if you look at the end of it. There are some notes and what have you, and there's lots of pages that are like a couple of lines. So I'm just saying that this is a quick read. This is a very short novel, and I want to just orient you to that's the text. Now, in preparation for this assignment, the assignment says, when the missionaries came, the Africans had the land and the Christians had the Bible. They taught us to pray with our eyes closed. When we opened them, they had the land and we had the Bible. That's Jomo Kenyatta quote. Now, Kwame Anthony Appiah, professor of philosophy at Princeton, we've got his quote. He says this: one of the things that Achebe has always said is that part of what he thought the task of the novel was to create a usable, keep that in mind, usable past, trying to give people a richly textured picture of what happened, not some sort of monotone, bad Europeans, noble, perfect Africans, but that this is a complex, complicated culture, and especially a complex protagonist. I'm putting protagonist in air quotes here. Things Fall Apart presents the theme of tradition versus change from Achebe's perspective. Somebody who's writing in the future, because of course the story takes, well, he's writing in a present, but his story takes place in his country's past, right? Thinking about what happened, imagining what happened during colonization. The perspective from which history is written can change the argument. So here's your assignment. You're writing a short argumentative essay of 2 to 3 pages, formatted in MLA style, double-spaced, and you'll be discussing the colonization of Nigeria. And your main reading is obviously the story. You've been given a bunch of characters' perspectives, right? We've got Okonkwo, who's our main character. We've got his son, Nwoye. We've got Mr. Brown and Reverend James Smith. These are two different people who come to try to spread Christianity. You've got the district commissioner's perspective. We've got Enoch's perspective. We've got other characters in the story too. You could even do Okonkwo as one of his wives, specifically wife number 2, who tends to be the most focused on character based on events in the story. Right. So it's interesting that in this assignment, the way that it's written, it has you focus on men's perspectives. But I think it would be great if you wanted to take one of the wives' perspectives, because based on Okonkwo's actions, their lives are undeniably changed forever. So before you write about this assignment, think, what does each of these characters think about the colonization of Nigeria specifically, and change versus tradition in general? So what I will expect that you will do here is that you will quote very specifically from that text, right? So from the reading, you will quote on page, you're quoting the version that we're giving you. So we'll expect to see those page numbers and those quotes. Remember, when you quote, you don't change any of the phrasing. You use quote marks and you give us a page number. Consider which details from the text your chosen character would select, and that's what I'm looking to see. Make use of numerous quotes to support your points. Don't just make a general point like Okonkwo was stubborn and he was a misogynist. Well, yes, of course. Show me how. Explain where and why that his stubbornness was his downfall, for example, or his stubbornness represents an inability to prepare for the future, even though his character was always preparing for the future. With some perspective, you may need to extrapolate connect ideas how your character might respond to a particular situation. But you can base these inferences on things that the character said or did. Now, you're going to write as the character. So unlike in our first critical analysis, you can use I, me, we. You can say, the first sentence, I'm taking on the character of the district commissioner. And then you get the opportunity to go from there. You will construct a thesis statement. You see this link here? We have a link on thesis statements. And remember, this class was built on English 111 and 112 as prerequisites. Thesis statements were talked about usually at the end of 111, but absolutely in 112. It's the argument that guides the rest of the text. Your argument will be this character would act in such a way because of X, Y, and Z. Argument because of reasons. And so you'll get a chance to look at that link. Actually, strangely, it seems like this link isn't working. Don't worry about it. I'm going to give you a thesis statement link embedded right below this video, ones that I think will really help you contextualize the assignment. You can cite your sources and quotes following MLA guidelines. We have the link to NOVA and MLA guidelines in here. And remember my other videos from the announcements where we talk about how do you document content from Canvas? How do you document content from outside sources? You must include 2 outside sources, one which must be from the library databases. And so as you are talking about this text and your understanding of colonization through the story of the characters, you will then go to the library. So let me show you how you do that. In the library, we're going to choose articles. You don't want books or ebooks on this. We want a collection of articles. I'm going to search for Things Fall Apart. I'm just looking for the critical discussion of Achebe's work, right? So Things Fall Apart, Achebe, 420 hits. That's a lot. Go to peer reviewed. When we say use the library, we're talking about experts, critical analyses. You get a chance to see those critical analyses in your short analysis on Sappho's work, right? Because we gave them to you. Now you will be finding your own. Let me apply the filters. The filters will go from 420 to 327. Maybe you add a character's name here if you want to narrow it. You may want to add the word colonization. You see a lot of text here, and these texts aren't particularly long. You can definitely narrow it. The one thing I don't think you have to do, since this text was originally written in 1958, I'm not worried about narrowing it to the last 5 years. We do that, and I taught that in English 112. We narrow the scope of our research to the last 4 or 5 years, especially when you're running on STEM content, super sciencey, like you're talking about genetic differences, you're talking about current research. That's one thing. But when we're talking about literature, the literature of the time is fine. So I'm not worried about publication date at all, but you can narrow it further and you can take a look and you can see look at some of these journals, which I think would be really helpful for you, that privilege a focus on African literature, but not just taking African literature and comparing it to Western/American literature, but we're respecting it and we're looking at it as an amazing text on its own and how it's representative of cultures and societies that not everybody in the West is familiar with. And that is the whole reason that you're taking a world literatures class. So this would be a really exciting text for me to see. You choose, of course, this looks at a woman's perspective. So choosing our main character, a second wife, may be a good one if you chose that perspective. But of course, the text that you choose have to relate to the argument that you're making, right? So we're talking about a person's choices. The question of human dignity, this would be a really good one, for example. But you've got plenty to choose from here. So let's go back into this assignment. You must cite your sources and your quotes following MLA guidelines. And MLA guidelines means when you're citing the text, it's Achebe and the page number. And when you're citing your critical research, if you were citing Janie, and then maybe the comment came from page 42, Janie 42, right? And then you would have an entire works cited entry at the end of it. And remember, when you're in these articles, the works cited is pre-built for you. Let me show you. Let's click on the link here and let's look at it. I clicked on full text available, and then I click on the actual link that will take me to the text. So this is the reading here. You can see it right there. There's the text. You should be able to read it all. You've been training to do this. And up here in this database, the citation option is up at the top. There's MLA 9th. It's already preset for MLA 9th, and you'll put this in your works cited. And of course, Janny would be named when you quote Janny in the text itself. Okay. So our recommendation is to start with an outline to organize your thoughts. And here's a sort of a sample for you and a video to give you a little bit of background as well. And finally, before you submit this, use the rubric as a checklist. It will tell you exactly how I'm going to evaluate your text. Accuracy. Are you spelling characters' names correctly? Are you attributing actions to the right character? Do you have a deep understanding of the text, right? Do you do more than read Wikipedia? That's accuracy and depth. Organization, clarity. When we're talking about a text, I think the easiest way is to write about a text chronologically, because a text, this is a very straightforward text that moves from past to present. So in your examples, I think a nice way to organize your argument is moving from past to present. Creativity. What types of quotes are you using? How are you making your case? Clear use of resources, and of course, grammar and mechanics. And just remember my post about no AI use is allowable in this assignment. I would prefer to see a grammar error too, to be quite honest with you, and to know that this is your writing. Again, this is not a super long assignment. It is 2 to 3 pages, which is the equivalent of like 600 to 900 words. But I'm really curious to see how you engage. Give it your all here. Read the text for a couple of days. Don't try to crash read it in one day. Read it over a couple of days. Take notes. Try to make connections. Think about this assignment and then go back to those notes. Craft an outline. Go for it. I wish you great luck. And remember, it's due Sunday before 11:59 p.m. Don't lose points. It's 15% a day when you submit late. And the reason for that is just because the class is going so quickly that we're already like 40% through the class, if you can believe it, by the end of this week. So that's my feedback for you. My notes on this assignment, I'm excited to see how you interpret our characters, how you interpret their motivations, how you interpret who they are as people and what they represent in the bigger literary picture. I know how I feel about it, but I would love to learn from you, and I can't wait to read what you have to say.